Hi there, Kawhi here. Make sure to subscribe as only 95% of the people are, and smash the like button. I'll release my UI guide very soon. Thanks guys, enjoy the video. Hi there, Kawhi here. In today's video, I'll be commenting over this key that was done not too long ago. As you can see, this comp is pretty spicy. We have a Shadow Priest and a Red Paladin. About this first spec, there is not much to talk about. Just pop Bloodlust and use your Sigil and Potion. Make sure to focus the Vanguard, because that is the mob that is likely to live the longest. Assuming even one cast slightly goes off, like a couple milliseconds, it will still live very long unless you have any kind of focus damage, which I mean the Shadow Priest is not gonna focus it down really. Similar for the Red Paladin, and for me, well, I'm just Flame Strike betting on the head, so it's a bit, as you can see from the DPS meter itself, it's how do I say it, it's you would say LFR damage, but it is what it is. Keys this week have been pretty bad. Inspiring is just way too much for bugs to handle. It's not even just bugs in general, it's also just that in some dungeons, like Mist for instance, inside of the maze you already need like a lot of damage just to make the time, but then you also have to CC some ups. On this pack you are probably one of the better DPS, I would say, just simply because you have multiple Dragon's Breath on this pack. Like I think with the you could get, I would say like 3 at least, 3 Dragon's Breath. Assuming of course the damage is low like in this group, but I would just say just in general, you're probably one of the better DPS on this pack. But in high keys you would probably not play this pack and just skip onto the boss, but it's a puck route, so it is what it is. Truly not much to talk about there. There's only 1 or 2 casts and not much is really going on. Bit unfortunate that we wasted combustion there, but with it's not that much of an issue. The only thing that might be a bit annoying is being unable to CC some of the smallies that are spawned from the boss, since Inspired makes it unable to be CC'd. This pool in general is pretty easy on Fortified, apparently, on tanks. Also the Kirin orbs just help you so much. And I actually proc cheated there because, well, there was no defensive up. I didn't press my barrier, I didn't press my mirror image, I was just tanking it naked basically. It was pretty bad, let's just put it like that. But that's fine. If you're playing as bad as me, well, at least you can get bailed out by cheated, so that is pretty huge there. This wave is not that worrying. It's probably the next wave due to not having the orb ready. Or it's just gonna expire the orb and then we actually have to pump some damage into these ads, but for right now we're just doing our single target rotation, just making sure that we get as many Pyroblast out during our combustion as possible.
Avoid. Fixate. Fixate.
So here we get some pretty great timing on the ads, I would say. our combustion is back up, and we just have to flame strike spam those, unless we actually want to get overrun by those. It's a bit unfortunate as we lose boss damage, but we still managed to extend our
Avoid.
SKB into this phase, and we probably CC these sets and then just proceed to nuke the boss, or we might actually play these. Oh no, I don't think we play these. We got a minor SKB in, and then we just yeet to the next pack. Bit unfortunate that combustion wasn't up during the pull, but we're probably gonna get a great combustion here, lining up with both sigil and potion. This is also an amazing pack for Dragon's Breath. The cast Throw Flash, you can just DB them and it will not, I think, recast if it's starting the channel. And pretty similar to the big Vanguard pack, it's you're just gonna get at least like 2 or 3 full Dragon Breaths in. Assuming you get of course, but that might differ in box.
Avoid.
And there's truly not much going on here. We might have used Dragon's Breath before we used our rune there and shifting power just to get another Dragon's Breath, but it's not that big of a deal. Everyone was at full HP, and I mean, we're just hard chilling at this point. This is probably gonna be the hardest pack, just because it's the inspired on the elite, so you can't really interrupt both the Frostbolt cast as well as the Necrotic bolts. So well, if the key is high enough, well, the tank is probably or the healers are gonna be pretty stressed out. But for the DPS, it's just like use defensive, and I mean that's really about it. You just try to pump the big elite down, the big inspired elite down before stuff goes out of hand. I get a Grim Fate, so I instantly alter time, and since again I did not use both my mirror image as well as my barrier, I actually got pretty fucked there. Not only did I lose out on DPS on that pull, but I also missed out on my SKB, which is really, really bad. Even the last couple of seconds of your combustion can still go into the next pack, and the thing that mage struggles with is if you're with your damage outside of your combustion. So missing out on a full combustion window and not getting that into the next pack is really, really bad. But again, we're just looking at it from a critical point of view and probably make some adjustments. I was actually pretty tense during this key. That's mainly the reason I didn't do a live commentary, but maybe next time. On this pack there wasn't really anything to talk about. The Kyrian orbs just basically kill this pack. At least the shield guy kills itself, and then I mean there's just 2 ads that need to be kicked, but it's truly irrelevant. This pack here, the the 2 skeletons are pretty scary. Assuming you don't have orb or anything else, it's really great to have a fire mage in your necrotic wake, just because of the shields. It's, I mean, your combustion CD is like 40 seconds or something, so you can just full send it and by the time you want it, it's probably gonna be up again, assuming you use your single target rotation to reset your kindling. I mean your combustion with kindling stacks.
Interrupt.
The great part about that pool is that we can just hold our SKB and then go into this next pack. Since we just don't have any damage outside of our combustion here, it's great that we at least get some sort of prior damage onto the elite.
Interrupt. Targeted. Targeted.
So I'm not sure if the orb spawning right now was the play, but apparently it was. Not. I highly doubt that was planned. As you can see there, the big elites can be used, not can be used, can be stunned by DB, or at least you can break channeled abilities, but it's on a set cast sequence, so you won't actually fully interrupt it, but you can still, like, assuming the big debuff is going out, you're gonna be able to at least buy some time for yourself or your teammate. On this pack, you're supposed to kill WoW. You're skipping to the boss after this. We get a great SKB extension. Unfortunately, the tank dies from something. Probably, it was the caster in the back. Yeah, if the caster is in the back and he's just spamming these necrotic bolts, it's really hard for the tank to stay alive. But yeah, so we just killed WoW and then we skip this pack because you want your CDs to go into this boss instead of the trash pack. Like, it would be horrendous if you would use your CDs and you would face this boss, the ads would spawn and then you have just no CDs and you wipe. Assuming you just don't stun the ads, because you can prevent the one shot if you stun the ads that the boss spawns. So we get a great setup here. We get a 20-second combustion, which is massive. We do our shifting power first because usually there is some CCing that needs to be happening, so I just want to get that off as fast as possible. I see that the CC is not happening on the mage, so we just have to single target it down. A bit sad that we cannot bat on the smallies that are under the boss, but it is what it is. And here we're kind of scared, like the one shot is about to happen, but fortunately enough everything gets stacked under the boss and we are able to kill the ads before the one shot happens. And yeah, I don't know what broke the CC, but apparently it got broken. Usually what I suggest in pucks would be to always CC the far one, the most far one. So you can see that mage over there, the most far one are CC'd. The ones that spawn under the boss, you just try to get them in and just kill them as fast as possible. If needed, you could hold your CCs at the last second to avoid the final harvest. But this boss fight is pretty straightforward. Your combustion, nearly every wave aligns, and you are able to do many different things with your combustion. You can focus down the mage, or like the boss, for instance. You can spam your flame strikes and get your flame patches and flame strikes under the boss, so you do the most damage to the ads, but unfortunately it is not the most optimal way to do single target damage, flame strike. But still, you can swap between your single target and your AoE without too much effort. At least that's what you should be aiming for. If you're able to swap between single target and AoE within a GCD, then keys are going to be pretty easy, I would say. So the next pool, or at least to set up the next pool, you would need to sheep the collector. Unfortunately,
Interrupt.
I don't think it's gonna happen this pool. But what just happened now is very important on this pool, at least. If you need your CDs back from using it on the boss, there is some tricky stuff with the relics, simply because the fleshcrafter will use his throw cleave to, if it's near the relics, it's, well, let's just say I've seen some spicy things. Or at least not on this pool or in this key, but we pulled an inspired guy into the pack, and then we spawned WoW, and then well we couldn't kick the cast, so the whole party wiped, and the people were pretty malding over it. So this pack in general is just with the relic. I would say let the DPS get some aggro on the and then you just simply use the daggers on the big vanguard. On this pack, your sigil is probably gonna line up, and that's a great thing, as you want as much single target damage on the vanguard. Or if you're chaining it with the big boy, that's even more prio for you. But in this pack, what you just want to be doing is be very liberate, or at least you want to just freely use your Dragon's Breath and try to help the tank out as much as possible. Some of the, if you're chaining at least, some of these mobs, like the Vanguard into the big Stitchwork, into the big guy, once the tank has the increased physical debuff on him, that Vanguard is gonna do so much damage to the tank. So make sure that your DBs are used whenever the tank gets multiple stacks of those. But on this pool we just did it because I totally forgot to CC once the patrol was walking at that Vanguard. However, this Stitchwork needs to die, especially on Fortified, as fast as possible. This mob is probably the hardest hitting mob, I would say, in like just a straight 1-for-1. Like, once he gets his stacks rolling and the key level is high enough, even like basic melee attacks, just that normally you wouldn't even worry about, might just start one-shotting you, as the tank just immediately starts dropping to 10% HP just from random basic melee attacks. It's hilarious. So about this pack, it's very important that you either take aggro of this corpse collector, or that you keep this guy far away as possible. His casts are very deadly, especially the AoE one. Not Drain Fluids, but the one that is the Core Splatter. That one can wipe your whole party if the key level is high enough, or there are other affixes in use. These could be Enraging, these could be Bolstering. That ability will just straight up one-shot you in high fortified keys, so it is highly advisable to be careful with this pack. Either focus down the soldier before any important casts go off, or CC the corpse collector and then move away the soldiers by taunting the smallies before you engage with the corpse collector. It's a possibility. That's just,
Interrupt.
I mean, that's in general why inspiring is so annoying. Fortunately enough, this key level is just not high enough, or we outplay inspiring. That's also a possibility. Fortunately, we spawn and here we just spam our flame strikes. We try to maintain
Interrupt.
2 stacks of Infernal Cascade, and we are just spamming as much as possible. Even though the Kyrian Stitchwork has prio required on this pack, especially, you just want to get rid of the caster and some of the smallies. Reasoning being, let's just say the big guy is gonna live anyway, assuming you're pulling for like 2 minutes, so you're stacking this debuff. Assuming you're pulling that long, your pull is that long, it would be better just to kill all the smallies, so that way you won't, let's just say, get one shot by random melees at different time intervals. As this big boy goes down, we get into the RP part. These mobs are, or not mobs, these elites are pretty dangerous unless you got a paladin in your group. Simply for Bob, if the Bob can be applied, well, then you can just tank it in melee, and then you can set up these really simple throw cleaves at each other. It's real simple. If the paladin actually bobs you, you can just simply stay stationary and you don't have to move at all. Unfortunately, our priest doesn't have the IQ required to be able to know this, but it is what it is. It's definitely a fun change of pace to play with some meme specs once in a while. I wouldn't recommend pushing with a Shadow Priest or a Red Paladin, but yeah, it is what it is. The main reason for that is just, well, if we're talking about Priest, well then, why are you not playing Holy Priest, right? Like, it's like Holy Priest is just like 10 times better than anything Shadow could offer. And in the case of Red, well, it's just a melee spec, so you need to be melee, which is hard. I mean, it's like every mechanic is predictable, right? But melee compared to ranged is just infinitely harder. But assuming the skill level are similar on, let's just say, a ranged and a red. Red is still relied on its cooldowns to do any significant, whether that's prio damage or burst damage. Obviously, helps a lot, but it's not like you're missing out on anything if you're playing with a red paladin. Well, you're actually missing out on, let's say, a second destruction warlock this season, or like a survival hunter, or like anything else, like maybe a mage, or I don't know. Windwalker is pretty amazing as well. Like, I guess melee is also super weird. It's just that I don't know. It's kind of similar for ranged, where if you're ranged, you're kind of at least, I would say, expected to play multiple ranged, whether that's specs or whether that's classes. So I think it's similar for melee, where if you're a melee, you can just swap over to any melee you would like. Whether that's, let's say, you're a red paladin, you could maybe swap over to a rogue, and you could probably do similar DPS output and maybe bring extra utility that way. Or if you're, for instance, a Shadow Priest, you might be able to swap over to a Destruction Warlock fairly easy. It's just similarly for basically any S tier spec. It's not like WoW is mechanically challenging or anything. It's just the main reason is just about information. Like once you're aware about some certain interactions, whether that's for instance with trying to maximize your combustion cooldowns or something like that. Once you're familiar with the information and you're comfortable with your rotation, it's just all about getting muscle memory, and after that, well, it's just you're playing a better spec. So even if you're playing better, well, you're probably playing better than if you're playing your best at your
Move.
on your if you're playing your best on your main. Obviously, there's a huge caveat. This is obviously talking about Mythic Plus. Raiding is fairly different. I would say, personally at least. The skill set for raiding is a bit different than Mythic Plus. With Mythic Plus, you can just press W and do like good damage, and you can just do keys like this, for instance. Like as long as you do enough DPS to get the key timed, it's just after that all about pressing W and not wiping to fundamental mistakes, like this hook, for instance. If you nail this hook, I will guarantee it's scientifically proven, time more necrotic wakes than if you are unable to do that hook. So at the end of the day, it's all about getting your knowledge on certain interactions as well as your rotational skills up if you're wanting to improve in WoW. And I would love to say that it is exciting stuff, but unfortunately it's mostly very static observation and just having a critical eye at stuff. Like that last combustion, I just could have saved it and then I could have used it on lust. That's what we're doing right now. So stuff like that there is, as well as that spear, for instance. That spear was so two things. We probably shouldn't have used our combustion that last 10 or 15% on the previous boss. We also shouldn't use our spear before we pull the relic out of the mobs. It's hilarious to say the least, but at least we get our combustion. And we use it to break the shield so we don't get absolutely destroyed by the shield. So yeah, it's really unfortunate that this this relic's found, but at least we get some pretty amazing movement speed, right? That's amazing for if you're downstairs. Like there's literally nothing better than having it downstairs, a bit of movement speed. And now we get sent down with our sigil buff and potion active. We are down bad, horrendous. We are actually so bad. Well, at least the movement speed helps something. Yeah, you definitely wanna use your images to tank these melee hits. On Fortified it's like whatever, but on high keys, on Tyrannical, you will get fucked by those melee hits. Let's just put it like that. The fact that those skill with or with Tyrannical is pretty insane. It's kind of sad that we miss our SKB window, but everything is a guaranteed crit now, so we're just hard chilling at this point. And that was kind of scary, but not the end of the world. We have cheated, we have our bot tender, we can just literally, it's like if we would have to int in order to actually die, let's just put it like that. And yeah, I think we get one more shield, and I mean that's about it. It was a pretty clean key. DPS was very low, but that was obviously expected, assuming you are pugging. You cannot expect DPS from your teammates, you cannot expect interrupts. You really just have to, I wouldn't say hard carry, but